Hello, it's Ren Presents time. I'm your host, Ren, and today we continue with the Belmont Saga, Part 2, Chapter 21, Stenstrom's Baggage, and we are blasting our way through Part 2 of this book, this long aside into the past of Paymaster Stenstrom. I keep mentioning that, but I think it's worth mentioning, so we're getting towards the end, I believe. The final chapter in part 2 of this book is chapter 28. So 7 chapters to go after this. It'll go by fast. It's good stuff. It's just the plot is in idle at the moment. Last week, we see Paymaster Stenstrom graduating from the University of Bern at long last. His mother announces she is coming to fetch him and take him home, and he knows that if she gets his ass back to Belmont Manor, she will get it out of him of what he is planning on doing, that this Paymaster thing that he's got cooked up thanks to Lily is a way around the blood promise that she has plied to him at various times as he's grown up, and she'll just ply it to him again. Go, oh, a civilian? Well, we'll see about that. Shit, let's go. And I'm gonna stick a knife in your chest right now. So it is imperative that he not be anywhere near the city of Bern. Lady Alatrix comes to his apartment, wants to have a small private celebration commemorating his graduation, and then she reveals that she has fallen in love with him over the past year and a half or so. Promised, it wasn't going to be anything important, and she knows full well that he is fully possessed by Lillian of Gamboa. He's made no secret of that, and she knows that. And then she goes on, kind of like, well, something's weird about Lily. I don't know what, but I just know. And whether that's just her lamenting the situation or not, who knows at this point. But she helps him flee from Bern. He heads straight away to Calvert, a very seedy, not impoverished, but compared to all the other parts of Cana, where you have the Vith in the north, the Remnafs to the west, the Barrows, the Hallas even, the Xenons, especially the Xenons, they're bringing up the rear. The Calverts are not overly imbued with cash and are looked down upon by other parts of the league, but Calvert is a good place. We'll find out later on when we get back to Lord Aram. Remember him, Lord Aram? We'll discuss his past a little bit, and he talks about growing up in Calvert and how it was a decent place to grow up. Nobody had a lot of money, but you really didn't need that. Everybody was looking out for each other. Everyone knew each other. Everyone liked each other. Until this whole crazy fiend business cropped up, and then they started being a little bit more careful, but that same Calvert spirit was still there. He meets an academic who runs a Fiend of Calvert murder tour named Lady Miranda of Russell, and she tells him that she believes that the Fiend of Calvert, as dictated by the Mad Lord of Walther, who defeated the Fiend, that she was actually a female, that she was a woman dressed in gray. And Stenstrom's like, well, I've had a lot of rotten events with a lady dressed in gray. And Lady Miranda was curious, asked him a lot of questions, and as he talks about his incident at Fox Park and Rustum Labyrinth, and again at college with the Astral Traveler, that she believes that the Fiend, instead of being a man at a gas mask, is actually this lady in gray who's been plaguing Stenstrom throughout his life. Whether she's right about that or wrong, we will soon see. Anywho, the net around Paymaster Stenstrom is slowly starting to tighten. Mother has the Black Maidens out looking for him. They are catching his wind. Literally, they home in via sight and smell, and you can't evade them forever. They're gonna get you and send you right back home to Belmont Manor sooner or later. He knows several techniques to prolong the chase by sticking his head up Lady Miranda's skirt and allowing her scent to mask him. That seemed to be a decent technique in at least prolonging this chase. So let's continue Part 2, Chapter 21, Stenstrom's Baggage, and we'll see how this develops. Back in his rented room, he was again to his task and the growing troubles that dogged him. Mother, he saw 5 black maidens as he made his way back to the toothless dame, the lingering smell of Lady Miranda upon his body still offering him a bit of cover. Mother was going to magic him back to Tyrol, and to fight fire with fire, he needed his books. He had them in a chest back in his room at the University of Bern. He had to leave them behind after his hasty flight from the city. He wrote to Alatrix to send for his baggage, and he gave her the number of a locker at the air, sea, and land port in St. Edmunds, which was just up the coast. In disguise, moving in the shadows, he staked out the place and waited for his baggage to arrive. He had to be careful. Mother had ways of finding people, both worldly and otherworldly. Her vast network of friends was formidable. Any passing person could be on the lookout for him. Hence his disguise. Additionally, any number of summoned entities could track him down if they got close enough, and he had no protection other than his ints, which were overkill and sure to alert other entities should he use them. He needed a way to quietly detect the spirits and devise countermeasures. He needed his baggage, and specifically, his chest full of his arcane books. The Empire Hotel was problematic. It was centrally located. Its massive tower commanded an unobstructed view into the nooks and crannies of St. Edmunds. Small wonder the fiend used it as his base of operations. From the innumerable terraces and hidden nooks, he could see the wealthy, oddly dressed people looking out, many holding drinks and standing behind spyglasses, not pointing the lens upwards, but pointing down to the streets, honed in on the people, watching them intently. Looking for him, no doubt, on Mother's request. He would have to be careful, use his fade into the shadows without question. A few days later, the baggage arrived. Trying to be discreet, wary of the eyes looking down from the Empire Hotel, he carefully spied the surroundings and made his way to the port. There, he waited for a good moment to collect his baggage and be off. But drat! Was that Lady Chastra of Owen standing over there? What in creation was she doing in Calvert? She was a friend of his mother's from Mercia, and she saw everything, and worse, she spoke of everything. True to her name, she was chatting with friends near the counter where his chest was held, and she didn't seem to be in a hurry. He waited into the shadows for her to depart, but the black maidens, they were emerging from everywhere, and no hiding in the shadows would suffice against them. They were going to sniff him out sooner or later. He could not linger. He had to flee the port and return to his lodgings, his mother clearly having won this round, and he seethed with frustration. He waited in his small room, not daring to go out. Through his windows, the Empire Hotel loomed, casting its shadow. He paced the floor, impatient. There was a knock. He moved silently to the door and gave it a small rap with his knuckles. 3 raps came in reply. He smiled and opened the door. Lady Miranda stood there. "Lord Belmont, I have fetched your baggage from the port as you requested. I saw no one at the station. I felt no danger." "Did you avoid the Empire Hotel as I requested? I see eyes there watching the streets at all hours." She quickly walked in, pulling a float litter behind her. "They're not looking for you, sir. Patrons at the hotel enjoy people watching the locals from their expensive, exclusive terraces. St. Edmunds and its folk is like a grand zoo for them to gawk at from a safe distance." "Yes, well, we'll see." There was his baggage. 4 large trunks emblazoned with a garish bee, and a slightly smaller wooden chest containing his arcane books. They appeared innocent enough, but "Thank you, my lady. These trunks are trapped." "Trapped?" Her attention turned to the baggage, and her interest began to peak. I think you should explain in further detail, Lord Belmont. My mother, she is a Tyrol sorceress, and she has trapped my baggage with outworldly snares. If I open these trunks, I'll be back to Belmont Manor in a flash. Lady Miranda stared at the trunks, her eyes wide with interest. She then curtsied and lifted the front of her skirt. Well then, let's see it. I'm not afraid. I offer you protection as I did before. Stenstrom knelt down and put his head up Lady Miranda's skirt. The baggage, except for the chest, should be unlocked. Go ahead and open them. Don't be afraid. It's me they want, not you. Will they not see you? Not like this. Stenstrom could hear Lady Miranda opening the trunks, her smooth legs flexing slightly as she worked. Her skin smelled of soaps and powders. Well, I don't see anything, she said with a hint of disappointment. However, there was no question that they were there in the room with them at that moment. Coming out of his baggage, he could feel it. You're not looking correctly. Look to the shadows. Forget the obvious and the mundane. See the improbable and the half-formed around you, and you will notice things few have ever seen. I don't understand, she said, rocking back and forth. Relax, close your eyes, and then open them. Truly open them. She stiffened up a little, then, oh, what is this? Oh, I see them. I see them, sir. They appear rather ghastly. Are they evil? No, they're not. They simply appear rather odd. Do you have all the trunks open? Yes, except for the wooden chest. It's locked. How many are there? Lady Miranda counted. 26. They seem to be sniffing about. Well, let them sniff their fill. They will then present themselves to you. When they do, simply tell them to go away, and they will. It's me they want, not you, and they cannot detect me clothed in your scent. Lady Miranda then did something he would have never expected. She suddenly crossed her legs, trapping his head between her thighs, her muscles cabling up in a taut manner. His ears muffled, he could vaguely hear her saying, "Go away! Do go away, please!" She wrenched up the pressure and then finally released him. He came rolling out of her skirt, face red, gasping for air, and the Black Maiden's gone. Lady Miranda didn't say a word. Instead, she fell on him, tearing at his clothes, grabbing his hands, and moving them to rather private places on her person. Apparently, her sexual desires and her intellectual curiosities were strongly linked together. Discovering new things appeared to deeply arouse her. They had a rather torrid night, Stenstrom taking her several times, discovering that she had a rather sadistic side to her, as he found himself scratched and rather bloody as the night wore on. Her voice changed. She uttered obscenities as they had sex. She performed fellatio upon him and demanded he take her from the rear, and then she demanded lengthy cunnilingus. In the morning, she plied him with questions. She wanted to begin research on a new book, uncovering the hidden truths of the world, black maidens and sorcery chief among them. She insisted he check out of the inn and come with her to her home on the hill north of the city. She said she was alone, a widow, and would be glad to have him. Think of the things we could do for each other and to each other, she said. He promised he would consider it and sent her on her way, she first securing his various Halomon and Halomeo account information and a flurry of promises that he visit her soon for research and other things. At last he was alone with his baggage. The important one, though, his chest of arcane books, was still locked. He'd forgotten about that one. Lady Miranda couldn't open it. He grabbed his inks and cocked them. He touched the surface of the chest, for he truly didn't want to hurt a black maiden. They were kind and benevolent, and though they were a tad gaunt, they were a glad presence. His sister Nylar knew how to tickle them and make them laugh. It wasn't their fault Mother had sent them after him. I'm sorry, he said as he pointed and fired. The throbbing mass of green energy passed through the wooden lid of the chest and didn't come out the other side. He took a deep breath and unlocked the chest, revealing a cache of books within. There was no indication that anything had been in the chest waiting for him. Perhaps it had been empty after all. He kept that thought with him as he unloaded his books. He vowed he would never point his ints at a black maiden ever again. He would run, he'd confound and divert them, but not kill. They didn't deserve that. Finally, with his arcane library in hand, he set up a small apothecary in his room. He bought brass pots, tripods to hang them on, flame burners, mortars and pestles, and an assortment of knives, tongs, and other required utensils, and a laboratory's worth of salts, chemicals, flowers, herbs, and metals. He also bought bags of plaster for holy stones. The first thing he did was create a bolabung, which was a small bit of wormwood infused with a few chemicals. Bolabungs were normally used to shield one's mind from unwanted telepathy, but with a little modification, they could protect one from a variety of things, black maidens included. He infused the bolabung with a healthy amount of Lady Miranda's scent. He acquired a fair amount of it during their previous night together, strung it on a leather cord and put it around his neck. The bolabung would require refreshing. Cooking down various oils and beeswax, he made a salve of her scent, strong and odorous, which he could smear on the bolabung every day. Thus equipped, he began making holy stones. Holy stones were marvels of chemical design and could be made to perform any number of useful one-time functions. They took a skilled hand and a learned mind to properly make them. Mother had spent 3 years teaching their lore to him and his sisters. He prepared the plaster and cast them into hollow spheres, not too thin, not too thick, and readied them for filling. Some of the more basic ones were quite easy to create. Yellow creates a soft light equal to 4 or 5 candle power. Duration 1 hour. Ingredients tungsten, salt, and sodium chromate. Red creates a hot energetic fire that shall burn until the chemicals are used up. Ingredients hydrogen infused gel, kerosene, and flint. Green creates an expanding sticky substance similar in appearance to a spider's web. Ingredients titanium, bromine, mercury, silk, and whisperwill, a flowering plant. Blue creates a powerful vitriolic acid. Ingredients sulfur, pyrite, manganese, and water. These holy stones were nice to have and fairly easy to make. In one afternoon of crushing and stirring and heating over a fire, he had quite a few of them ready to go. He then set to work to the more advanced ones that could aid him in the detection and defeating of demons and invisible spirits. Those were ones he needed most. Purple oscillates or rumbles in the presence of invisible creatures. Ingredients cadmium, iron, henbane, a flowering plant. Black detects mystical objects or persons. Ingredients hornblende, antimony, zinc, monkshood, a flowering plant. Beryl, crushed, natron, bismuth, hardaway, another flowering plant. Quartz and obsidian. Pink renders those who touch it for too long unconscious. Ingredients morganite, carbuncle, gypsumweed, beeswax, rose oil, peyote, and nightshade berry. White prevents the body from going into shock. Ingredients granite, crushed, manganese, rhodium, and menthol. The pink ones, or pinkies, were difficult to get used to, as in handling them, he could just as easily become incapacitated as the person he was planning on using it. During his training, he had gotten used to its effects to the point where he could hold one for an extended length of time and not be addled. It was part of his training. His sister Virginia, for all her various failings, was a champion pinky holder, easily able to outlast both him and Lyra back to back. He purchased several silver candlesticks and ground them down a little bit, ensuring they were perfectly level. He then placed a purple and a black holy stone on top of the stick where the candle would normally go. If the stones started rumbling, or if they jumped off the stick and rolled on the floor, he would have immediate warning. Those, along with his astral plane detectors and his bolabung, should keep him reasonably safe in the short term. He could now relax a little and continue his business. He now felt he had more than enough false papers and fake tenure to sustain him. The matter of officiating a public financial deal was a bit more challenging, as he needed witnesses. A visit to one of the drop-down waterfront bars in Bezel easily corrected that problem. He slid up to the bar one noisy evening, nursed a watered-down bottle of spirits, and kept a sharp ear. Before long, he eavesdropped on two filthy toughs in great need of arbitration.
"Gard, Norbag, you zaffin' spawn, I roll sevens! Sevens!"
A painted-over merchantman spat, pointing his crooked finger at a pair of grubby dice.
"He owes me the lot, and more."
The man sitting across from the table begged to differ.
"You roll sixes, Nospin. See? 3, 4 equals 6. Now hand over the till, lest I feels inclined to charbroil your lungs."
Stenstrom pulled a chair and sat down. Two pairs of bloodshot eyes turned to him. "Gentlemen," he said, "well met. I am Stenstrom, Lord of Belmont, South Tyrol, and I couldn't help overhear your small financial dispute. I would like to offer my services and assist you through this unsettling situation as a payer and impartial arbitrator. What do you say?"
"I says you best be moving along, squire, lest you finding these dice knocking about inside your body."
"Yeah," Nospin said.
"And you'll not have eaten them either."
The two men laughed in a phlegmy fashion. Stenstrom was unfazed. "Yes, well, I think we can clear this up pretty fast, gentlemen. You see, Sir Morbag, 4 plus 3 indeed equals 7, as currently displayed by these dice here. However, these dice appear to be rigged to unfairly land on 7 a disproportionately high percentage of the time, and therefore the roll is invalid."
"You're saying I'm a growing roadie dice, you slime holler!"
Nospin shouted. "Yes, I am. My judgment in this matter therefore is swift. This roll is invalid, as are any previous rolls using said loaded dice, and you too shall receive all payouts back and let the matter be forgotten. The dice in question shall be impounded or replaced with a fair set of dice with all speed. I additionally rule that you two shall be entitled to a small reimbursement equaling 4,000 sesterces each for your inconvenience." Stenstrom plopped 2 small money bags down the table. He smiled. "There! That was easy. Now, I require that the two of you follow me down the street to the office of Notary Geisel, where you shall sign a sworn affidavit that I, Stenstrom, Lord of Belmont, South Tyrol, fairly and promptly arbitrated this matter in a public place." Stenstrom looked around at the disgusting bar. The two grubby men gawked at him a moment. They suddenly drew a set of dirty blades.
"Go tow, you winch winker!"
A massive brawl broke out in the bar. Courtesans screamed, things flew out the windows, and some time later a rumpled Morbag and a bloody Nospin arrived at the office of Notary Geisel and signed, at gunpoint, the sworn affidavit Stenstrom had asked for. He was now all set. And with that, we conclude Part 2, Chapter 21, Stenstrom's Baggage. I had considered deleting the part where I talk about the various holy stones. I thought it might have gone on too long, but it wasn't too bad. Wasn't too bad. Just trust me on that. Lady Miranda fetches Stenstrom his baggage from the land, air, and seaport, basically my version of an airport, and brings it back to him at the Toothless Dame, which is a cricket shack. And a cricket shack, just so you know, in my world, is an inn that has certain technologies present that dampen telepathy fields so that no one can read your mind or use gifts on you while you're there. The cricket and the name Cricket Shack comes from the sound that these devices make. That kind of chirp in a droning fashion. And so while you're in a cricket shack, you can be reasonably rest assured that no one is trying to read your mind. That's a thing to have to consider in the League of Elder, where there's a lot of telepathically verbose people, including the sisters, and that's a whole nother can of fish. He suspects that his baggage has been trapped by his mother with black maidens, and he is correct. With his head once again up Lady Miranda's skirt, she opens the baggage and all these black maidens come out, and eventually she eventually can see them. At first she can't see them, but as she opens her mind and relaxes and listens to Stenstrom's commands or his instructions, she eventually can see them, and then she just asks them to leave, and they do depart. But they're not going to be gone for long. Oh no, they're not going anywhere. Eventually they're going to get Stenstrom. He can only hide up her skirt for so long. And then her intellect and her sex drive being inexplicably intertwined, she then plows into Stenstrom and they have a torrid night of sex. So he rearms himself with a fresh batch of holy stones, and then he goes out. He's got enough fake tenure, he doesn't need any more, but now he needs to arbitrate a financial deal. So he goes to a bar, finds a couple of sailors or something sitting there playing dice with loaded dice, and he intrudes on them and declares all the rolls invalid. Then he gives them compensatory cash, and then now wants them to sign a paper to Lord Geisel, that the notary, that he indeed arbitrated their dispute in a public place. And they tell him to get bent, but then he apparently beats the crap out of them and takes them at gunpoint to Notary Geisel, where they can sign this fake set of papers. So that's that chapter. Next week, part 2, chapter 22, The Quest for Ibana. So now we see Stenstrom on his way to join the Ibana Brotherhood. He will leave Calvert, head to Mercia, and join up. And then from there, if fortune smiles, if he doesn't get nicked by the Black Maidens, he might just find himself in the stars. So that'll be next week. Until then, this is Ren Presents. I am your host, Ren. Peace out!